Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to come from the 9th chapter in the book of Proverbs. A proverb is a literary device, which is a pithy saying of condensed wisdom. So each word really packs a punch and carries more than the sum of its own part. And the book of Proverbs in the Old Testament, what sets the Hebrew version of this literary device apart from any other, is that it is divinely inspired. So this is more than merely human wisdom. And with this foresight comes the implicit imperative to listen and to treat it and approach it accordingly as a depositor of divine wisdom. And the 9th chapter is the shortest proverb in the chapter in the book of Proverbs. And it is also the tail end of what is the first section of Proverbs. The first 9 chapters they have more of a narrative form than the 10th through 29th proverb. Really, it's really just a succession or slew of proverbs, quite often with no identifiable sequence or connection from one verse to its antecedent and successor. But the first 9 chapters of Proverbs assume a more narrative form. And in the 9th chapter, we witness an antithetical dichotomy between wisdom and folly, each personified in female form, wisdom being a woman worthy to marry, and folly being a prostitute who offers stolen food. And the opening verse reads, "Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out its 7 columns." Now, 7 in scriptural numerology is the number of perfection. This can really be traced to the creation account, whereby the creation process is described in 7 days. And so what it's saying through 7 columns is wisdom is complete and total and lacks nothing. It is super abundant and super sufficient and can stand on its own. She has slaughtered her meat. She has mixed her wine. She has also prepared her table. She has sent out her young women. She cries out from the highest place of the city. "Who is simple? Let him turn and hear. As for him who lacks heart," she says to him, "come eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have mixed." Now, I earlier mentioned that there's somewhat of a more narrative sequence, not completely narrative, in the first 9 chapters. And this is the 3rd occasion where we witness wisdom personified as a female calling out. In verse 122, she calls out the scoffer, the simple, and the fools. And the scoffer rejects the call, and scoffers by nature ridicule and dismiss that which is significant and imperative to listen to. And in chapter 2, verse 5, so the scoffers are eliminated by process of elimination. And in verse 2:5, she narrows the call to the simple and the foolish, but the foolish by their nature are unable to process or utilize wisdom. So she narrows down the call in this verse to the simple. Now, simple is not necessarily detrimental to cognitive development. We must approach complex concepts through the foundation of simplistic layers which build up to more complex concepts. So we really shouldn't dismiss simplicity, the virtues of simplicity, and its ability to be self-evident to the most obvious and greatest number of people. And now she's seated, she's made the preparations. Implicitly, wisdom is diligent and anticipates needs in advance and prepares accordingly for them. So wisdom has the foresight to see ahead and prepare the guest, being those who would dine on her delicacies, which are not strictly speaking, they're metaphorically expressed in food, but nothing is physical in the realm of wisdom. That is to say, concepts are in themselves at least completely abstract. "Leave the simple ones and live, and walk in the ways of understanding." So the one to whom she issues the call was the simple ones, or the simpletons, and they are called away from their friends and familiar surroundings. Now, simpletons naturally gravitate towards simpletons, and vice versa for intelligent people. But in order for the simple one to lay hold of greater understanding, they must walk away and disassociate themselves from their habitual associates. He who reproves a scoffer gets shamed for himself, and he who rebukes a wicked one gets himself a blemish. Now, reproof or rebuke can be a conviction of sorts or a criticism of any variety, and our response to criticism really is a determining factor in qualifying our character. Now, if you criticize a wise person, eventually they will thank you. It may sting initially, and they may not see past the slight and the hurt, but they'll be able to not take it personally and learn from the lesson in the criticism. Whereas a scoffer will try and shame the one who tries to shame them, even if they're not trying to shame them, they're trying to improve them. And a wicked one will be violent, either verbally or physically, to the mere suggestion that they're not living up to all their potential. Do not reprove a scoffer, lest he hate you. Reprove a wise one, and he loves you. So this is the antithetical juxtaposition, the dichotomy between the wise and the scoffer. A scoffer is one who ridicules and belittles that which they should not. They treat as trivial items which are significant, and a wise one knows better, and they won't take it personal. They'll extract the lesson in the criticism and improve and be better for it. Whereas the scoffer, they're advised to not even bother with them because it's a negative response from negative people. Give to a wise one, and he is wiser still. Teach a righteous one, and he increases in learning. So the foundation of whatever knowledge we have today must be the foundation for the knowledge we accumulate tomorrow. We can never gain enough wisdom. But at the same time, it's not sinful to know more than we need to know, but everything we truly need to know is outlined in Scripture. That is not to discourage the practice of enhancing one's knowledge from secondary sources and to be able to illuminate those concepts and communicate them to others. It is only to say that learning is a process, and we should never slow down or be content to settle with what we have, because the fickle nature of knowledge is that some items of information we retain today will not be with us there tomorrow. So we always want to be mindful that what knowledge we gain can be lost, and we are to expand our knowledge in as many horizons as is practical. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Sacred One is understanding. This is a concept which repeats itself throughout the book of Proverbs. As early as verse 1:7, the fear of Yahweh is established as the foundational to wisdom, and understanding is part of wisdom, but wisdom transcends understanding. It intelligently utilizes information, bits of information that are acquired through intelligence, so it can be simplified in definition form as the intelligent use of intelligence. Wisdom is highly practical. It's capable of understanding the abstract and esoteric, but above all, it is able to apply and utilize knowledge in a practical, meaningful way. And we submit to, we who follow the way recognize the omniscient one as being the source, origin, foundation, and completion of all wisdom. And so we fearfully submit to him, and that is the foundation of wisdom, much as a sinner seeking salvation cannot attain that which he seeks unless they acknowledge the fact that they are sinners and independently incompetent to produce their own salvation. From that awareness springs the conviction, and similarly with knowledge, we have to approach it with an attitude of our own ignorance. We must categorically consider that everything we think is right can be wrong, because human beings are finite beings with finite capacities, and our potential to err is ever present. But the omniscient one is incapable of being in error or leading us astray. For by me your days become many, and years of life are added to you. So wisdom not only adds years to our life, but adds life to our years. That's the quantitative versus qualitative benefits of wisdom. It's now, this may seem simplistic to suggest that a wise person will inherently live longer, but length of life it should not be mistaken for a true mark of wisdom. But those who are wise will make healthy choices and live as long as they are able to or were meant to. If you have become wise, you have become wise for yourself. And if you have scoffed, you alone bear it. So in other words, the intellectual character of our makeup is really only us. There's no vicarious implantation. Now, if we surround ourselves with wise people, we can gain from their wisdom and accumulate some of what they know and add it to our storehouse and reservoir of facts. And the same principle applies to the scoffer, only in a more negative direction. A foolish woman is loud, simple, and without knowledge. Here the antithetical juxtaposition transitions into folly or foolishness, which is personified as a promiscuous, open, loud-mouthed woman who's nothing but trouble, but pleasing to the senses and seductive and alluring, but ultimately bitter as wormwood, to appropriate another proverb. For she has seated herself at the door of the house, on a seat by the highest places of the city, to call to those who pass by, who go straight on their way. Who is simple? Let him turn and hear. And as for him who lacks heart, she says to him, stolen waters are sweet, and bread in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are there. Her guests are in the depths of the grave. So there's a lot to digest here, and I wanted to read it in its full thought. Now, folly is inviting. They can please the senses, but that which caters to the flesh will not make one wise. And it's seductive and deceitful because it tricks us into thinking that which they have to offer is beneficial, when it is always, eventually, and inevitably harmful. No matter how pleasant the inception of acquiring what they have to offer may be, it is ultimately detrimental spiritually, intellectually, and for our character development. And stolen waters are sweet, is that just that's analogous to adultery or fornication, going outside of one's wife, or sex outside of marriage, but it leads in death, and it's for good reason that he closes on that ominous overtone, because it really leads to nothing but trouble, and sin is death. Wages of sin are death. Romans 6:23, also James 1:15. And we're going to close on that note. Thank you so much. Tune in next time. Bye-bye.